Hi, my name is April Madison, and I'm going to be talking to you today about tasers and the fact that I feel that there's no restrictions on tasers and the use of tasers, and I hope to persuade you to open your mind up and to think a little bit about the benefits and versus the risks of the use of tasers. In 2004, a Seattle, Washington woman who was 8 months pregnant was pulled over for a minor traffic infraction and refused to sign a ticket, and she was tasered by the police officer 8:30 in the morning in front of her elementary school. In May of 2009, a Texas grandmother who was 72 years old was tasered by a police officer for refusing to sign her ticket. In December of 2009, a Colorado police tasered a 10-year-old little boy after being called to his foster home. He was displaying erratic behavior, 10 years old. 10 years old. The police thought that they had to use a taser gun on him. In November of 2009, an Arizona police officer tasered a 10-year-old little girl. Okay, her mother had called the police because she didn't know what to do. The 10-year-old was throwing a tantrum, and the police officers felt that her behavior needed a tasering. So the father of the child, who didn't know this was going on, is quoted as saying, if an officer can't handcuff a 10-year-old child and put them in the back of a police vehicle, then that officer has no right being an officer. I completely agree. In 2004, a Florida police officer tasered a 6-year-old boy, a 6-year-old child. Okay, the child had allegedly thrown a picture in his classroom and it broke, and so they tasered him. They tasered him. I just find that morally unthinkable to taser a child. The use of taser guns has become the most controversial issue in criminal justice policy today. Has the use of tasers gone too far? Should there be more restrictions on the use of taser guns by law enforcement officials? Let's talk about the vulnerable population. I talked to you previously about the woman that was 8 months pregnant that had got pulled over. Over the course of this last week, I've been watching lots and lots of videos on YouTube of people getting tased, and so many of them, countless, were passively resisting or asking questions, and they weren't a serious threat. They didn't deserve to be tased. They just simply weren't complying to the officer's standards. So pregnant women, should pregnant women be allowed to be tased? I watched a video on YouTube of a pregnant teenager that had gone to the police station. She had a 6-month-old and she was confused, alone. She was going to drop the baby off at the police station because she didn't know what to do, and she was pregnant herself. Well, then she changed her mind and she wanted to leave, and they wouldn't let her leave. And they took this pregnant teenage mother and pinned her face down, belly down, on the ground and tased her when she really wasn't a threat to anybody. She was already in the police station, but they felt like they needed to tase her. How young is too young to be tased? What if I had a 4-year-old that was out of line? A 4-year-old that was through a picture in his preschool. Would he be tased? Is 2 years old too young? This is why we need restrictions on the use of tasers. There is no law currently discussing how young is too young, how old is too old. How old is too old to be tased? I watched a video of an 86-year-old grandmother who was laying in her bed, who was tased by the police. She was probably in the middle of having a stroke, but she had some medical condition. She was confused. The grandson had called because he didn't know what to do, and the police ended up tasering her because in her confusion and her state of old age, she said, I'm going to just kill myself. Well, you know what? She is confused. Being tased? Really? Come on, people. This is pretty ridiculous. How far is too far? How far? Would it be right to taser a passively resisting handicapped person in a wheelchair? Would that be right? Morally unthinkable. Out of the question. In general, the use of tasers from a medical standpoint are allegedly safe. But in fact, Taser International, who is the creator of taser guns, they warn that the use of tasers on pregnant women is not good at all. There's an Air Force study recently that says the use of tasers changes blood chemistry and can potentially lead to heart damage. They recommend that everybody that's tasered be checked out by an ambulance, by medical personnel. James Ruggieri, forensic engineer, warns against the use of tasers during training for police officers. There is simply not enough studies to show support for the tasering of children. There's no studies done, in fact, period, that show that tasering a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old, that's safe, or that tasering a pregnant woman is going to be safe for the baby inside of her and for herself, or tasering a 86-year-old woman. There's no studies done that show the effects of tasering. There are close to 500 people that have died from the use of tasers. Some of them, you know what, like I said before, I'm not against the use of tasers with the correct situation. Currently, as we sit, there are no real restrictions on tasers. Every municipality is different. It's alarming. Stanford University says there's fairly little case law governing the use of tasers, which is one of the reasons why it has been difficult for municipalities to enact guidelines to aid the law enforcement community in understanding when it is appropriate. The U.S. Supreme Court says that there's a couple reasons to use a taser. One of them is for the severity of the crime, okay, if it's a really bad crime. The other one is if the suspect poses a serious threat. And so I hope that this speech today has made you think about restrictions on tasering. Thank you. How much time?